when I moved, I had been in Dumbo for 10 years. And then
Right.
I lost my subsidy on the space.
Yeah.
And I could have negotiated a market lease, but I thought, oh, I've been in this bubble for so long, and the election had just happened. And I thought, no, I'm just going to put it in storage and see what happens. And so this is actually a quitting story.
Ooh, good, good.
And it's not that I was going to quit painting, but I just needed to approach it in a different way. And so I put everything in storage. I'd been in this subsidized spaces for 10 years. I'd been very lucky and, had good shows and met great people and everything else. But, with the second Trump administration, and I just knew it was going to be really hard. And, how did I want to, live through that? So I put everything in storage, and then we went to Dublin for a couple of weeks
Mm.
and then came back and realized, it would be sort of cowardly for us to go at that point. What good does that do? It does nobody any good. And so after,
Because it was a very real, like you were really thinking, I'm gonna move there.
well, yeah, I'm just so angry and
Yeah.
in disbelief. Anyway, I
Yes.
so I so I was working in my house, and finally after 10 weeks, I just thought, I am staying here, and I need to have a studio. And
Mm.
so I got a new space in Long Island City with an amazing view of old Long Island City. I don't know if you know this neighborhood at all,
A little bit, yeah.
but
I'm
there's like two distinct sections. There's the high rise fancy apartment buildings, and then there's all the auto body shops, the food cart storage, and I have a view of the old section. Anyway, and I was tired of struggling in my work. I had been at the point where I was painting things over and over and over, and it seemed like I didn't have any clear like to see that was it, or that there it is. And I just thought, why am I making myself miserable? Why am I going into the studio? Why am I paying all this money to go to the studio and work on things and paint them over and over and over and be miserable about it?
Yeah.
I thought I want to be like my sister who plays tennis all day,
Yeah.
But although when I think about it, she probably has the same anxiety about her serve or, whatever it is, the game she played that day. But I
Yeah.
just thought this is ridiculous. But when I got to the new studio, I kind of had a new ethos of non-suffering. That it was just like, I'm going to make these paintings and I'm going to enjoy making the paintings. And, I'm going to stop being so doubting about everything.
Yeah.
And if a painting doesn't work out, then I'll just start another painting. And what does that even mean that it doesn't start out? So I think, Jody, that I've reached stage 4, if you consider it like the Buddha, the 4 stages of,
Mhm.
you know, art development, I would say is, the first stage is when you learn your craft and you go to school and you start thinking about how to make whatever it is that you want to make. And then the second stage would be, okay, you know how to make the stuff. Why are you making it? What does it mean? And I did have various stages of quitting throughout those times. At one point I decided I was going to be I would comb the classified ads back when they had classified ads.
Mhm.
And I would find jobs that looked interesting to me. And one of them, I remember going for an interview with a sailboat, this big ocean sailboat, and they needed somebody to cook during ocean passages. I went on the job interview and I envisioned going on job interviews for me is like envisioning myself as a different sort of person, the type of person
Yes.
that has no interest in turning things into art, that doesn't respond to the world in a way that it's not just to see it and to appreciate it, but then you have to, or I make something out of it.
Yeah.
Like, how is that what can I do with that? Everything is like fodder for something else. And so I had this vision of being the type of person that doesn't do that. And ultimately, of course, I realized I would just be miserable cooking on a boat, cooking for a 10-person crew on a boat. Had no experience doing it, never been on an ocean passage, although I have, sailed all my life. So,
Oh,
so then I go back to the studio with this, what I've learned, about myself and about the world from going on different interviews and things.
yeah.
Anyway, so then stage two in the painting process or in the art making process, you start to look at the wider world. Okay, you figured out how to make your thing, and then it's like, well, why? What am I doing? What is worthy subject matter for this for all these skills that I now have? And that takes a while. And then stage three and stage two, I remember going on a interview for to be a stockbroker. And I actually didn't even make it to the interview. I was living in Boston at the time. And went, I got dressed in the morning for the interview. And I headed on the subway to the interview. And then this was back when they had payphones. And then I just said, I can't do this. I am just not the type of person that is going to go to the office and meet people I have nothing in common with and try to
Yes.
sell them stocks.
I mean, had you gotten your Series 7 and stuff? Like, had you gone that far?
No, I had
Okay.
not done any of that. But my sister was a stockbroker, my father was
Yeah.
a stockbroker. It was sort of like it was
My
easy for
dad
them to
was.
get me an interview.
Yeah.
And I just stopped and called and said, I can't make it. I can't do it.
Mhm.
So then stage two, and then I was living in Boston at the time. I moved to New York and just realized it was such a much bigger world, and kind of entered stage three. Well, this was actually really end of stage two, started to get some shows, and meet people, build some kind of community, and which, although I was the type of person that was always had had chutzpah enough to apply for things, even though I was nowhere near ready for them. And I had a pretty good run, I got a lot of opportunities and so forth. But then stage three, it's like you really know what you're doing. You've developed some knowledge of the wider world, and you kind of hit, like you say, you hit your stride. And of
Mhm.
course, not all of these stages. Some people go through all these stages in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Some people go through them, they get there when they're 70.
Yeah.
Some, you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be. Some
Yeah.
people's paths are straight and some people's are winding. And I think the idea of quitting is part of my process,
Mm.
that I say, and then after I go for an interview, I say, what is it about that particular job that appealed to me? Like, what are the aspects about that? And of course, being an artist, that becomes content, right?
Yeah.
That becomes subject matter of some kind.
Interesting. Yeah.
So my most recent uh, job interviews, one was to be a uh, a guard at the Metropolitan Museum,
Mm.
and you apply online. I think it was through LinkedIn or something. And I think I was tired of being a gatekeeper. You reach a certain level, and especially with two coats of paint,
Yeah.
and
I could see that.
there
Yeah.
gets a point where you feel like you're losing more friends than you're making friends
Oh. Hmm.
because so many people are disappointed that their
Oh,
show isn't covered or, whatever it is. And then there's the other um, thing about it is that I get more opportunities probably because of two coats of paint. I can have people will certainly come for studio visits and things, but then, you know, because there's this sort of reciprocal thing, it's like, are
hmm.
they coming to the studio because they want me to write about their upcoming show? Or are they coming to,
Yes.
so, and
Yes.
that's always sort of hard to navigate. So I
Yeah.
thought, I could be a guard at the Metropolitan Museum. And I went in for that. And I think they felt I was probably too old for the job. They said, do you really want to stand on your feet all day?
You're like, I got dance goes, man. Yeah.
So that was sort of interesting. And I also saw on the list of people they were interviewing other people I knew. It's like, huh,
Mm.
somebody else wants to be a guard. I just thought it would be such a nice change to just walk around and look at things all day, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Different
And it,
look at things without the without a responsibility on the other side of what you do with
exactly.
that looking, like
Yeah,
whether it's writing or
yeah,
advocacy.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And but then of course I realized I really didn't. The problem with that job was that I wouldn't be making enough money. I wouldn't have enough time to do other things because, of course, I'm used to this life where I spend doing nothing but things I'm interested in. And I get
Yes.
up and I think, I mean, I'm one of those people that can't wait to get up on Monday morning and say, okay, what's on
Yeah.
my list? I really enjoy doing what I do, and I
Yeah.
enjoy the freedom of my schedule. Um, and then the last thing that I've done is I thought it would be really interesting to be an extra on film and TV because I live in a neighborhood where they're always filming things. And I forget what the last thing was. Something with who was in it? John Turturro and Steve
Mm.
Buscemi. They were up in the pawn shop. And
So good. Yeah.
yeah, and my nephew is a sound person. He was a sound person on the shoot. And I was looking around, I was like, how do you get to be an extra on this? And so I went through that process and joined backstage and got my, pictures up and went on a few jobs. And I realized that and it was not that I wanted to be an actor because I certainly didn't want to be, I wanted to be an extra. I
Yeah.
just wanted to stand in the background and enjoy the day, hang out with other people who were doing that.
Mhm.
And the thing about it that I realized going on a few of the shoots was that it's really hard to be an extra. First, it's really hard to be an actor, but it's also really hard to be an extra. Like it wasn't just standing around. It was in a restaurant and I was supposed to be in the restaurant. I thought, great, I'll sit in the restaurant and I'll eat. What is that? You say peas and carrots, peas and carrots. And in fact, I had to stand at the counter, get my food, come back to the table, have a reaction shot. I'm like, I can't do this.
Wait, now I'm acting. I didn't
Now I'm
anticipate
acting.
that.
I can only be me. I'm sorry. I don't know how to play a role.
I can only be a thoughtful painter. Like if that's what you need.
If
Oh,
you need someone
wow.
doing a studio visit, I can do that.
Yes. Yes,
And
very well.
so,
Fascinating. Yeah.
but I got a few things and I enjoyed it. And one of the things I was it was a music video for a pro-choice
Mm.
music video. And we were standing outside and we were like yelling at people. We had to play both the anti-abortion people and the pro-choice people, yelling at the people going into the abortion clinic. And then, and it was kind of cathartic. You're like, and when do you ever get a chance to do that? Well, at the protests now. But, and then the
Yes.
other one was we were up on the rooftop carrying signs and cheering and things. And the experience of doing it really helped me in the No Kings protest because I'm like yelling and screaming and
Yeah.
completely unabashed. And I think that's from, hanging around with people who want to be actors. And
Mm.
there's so much about understanding emotion, emotional indications of emotion.
Yeah.
And I'm just not. And so I learned a lot about emotional content and what makes people respond emotionally to something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so here I am in my new studio making my work with a non-suffering process. And
Need this.
I've reached stage 4, and I'm
Yeah.
quite content.